Welcome to Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is Miss Jenny and I am your astrologer. This video is focusing on the full moon, February 5th. This full moon will be at 16 Leo. That means that the sun will be at 16 Aquarius. The moon will be at 16 Leo. Now this particular full moon is important because it will set up not just a T-square, but a grand cross. The T-square will involve Uranus and Taurus, which, the end of January, we had Uranus station direct, and depending on where you were on the planet, what you may have seen, I know that's what we saw over here, was just an overwhelming spike or increase in shootings and explosions and violence and people being crazy, like crazier than usual, like literally people shooting up their families and committing suicide. Oh my God. Uranus station direct at the end of the month, and it just tore the lid off any self-restraint or sanity some people had in great numbers. So we're not out of the woods yet. February compared to January is going to be a tame month, but we've got to get through this full moon first. And this full moon will involve Uranus, which is going to bring us more of that insane energy that we saw at the end of January with Uranus station. Now, none of this is to alarm or panic you. It is to prepare you. So with this said, the first thing is if we just look at the T-square, the full moon involving Uranus, right there, we're looking at a very, very high pressure cooker, like a very high level pressure cooker environment. So things are reaching culmination or climax or like point of, about to cross the Rubicon, literally reaching a point of critical mass. So something's got to give, and this full moon is going to force the issue. Now, Uranus is always, the liberator and the truth bringer, the, inconvenient truth. So it is entirely possible that this T-square, the full moon, which always illuminates things, right, and brings things to light, because what do full moons do in dark fields? They illuminate everything. You can see for miles under a full moon in the middle of the night. With it involving Uranus, which is again another enlightener, right? Like lightning strikes, which is very Uranus, also does the same thing. It can illuminate things for miles. So we can expect to see some things coming out unexpectedly into the open that may not have been things people intended to be revealed. So it will be interesting to see which corners of the universe this comes from. But all of these things, remember, with astrology, all of these things are about the evolution of mankind. So this is very much about our personal and social evolution. So things that are happening at this time are part of a much bigger process as we progress and move forward in our humanity and our development, and we become hopefully better, bigger, better, smarter versions of ourselves. I mean, I think we're doing okay. It doesn't look like it sometimes. But, compared to the days when we used to have public hangings and brought the kids in a picnic basket to watch, because that was high entertainment, we've made some progress. Okay, so let's talk about the full moon. So we've got the full moon with Uranus. We know that there's big stuff brewing, like that pressure cooker's building, and at any second now it's going to explode. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff coming out that people were not prepared for, planning on, or wanting to happen, right? So this could get messy. Now, here's what's interesting. This T-square also sets up a grand cross to the trans-Neptunian Poseidon. Now, what's lovely about this, and here's a saving grace, here's your like silver lining around the cloud. What's nice about this is that trans-Neptunian Poseidon is about illumination, right? And the higher love, unconditional love, right? But definitely the light within ourselves. So, and again, this whole thing about illumination and light, there's something coming out under this full moon that people weren't prepared for, or, agents of darkness, I should say, probably weren't prepared for. They weren't ready for this to escape, but it's coming out. And it will be for the betterment of all of us that we have this information. Poseidon is very much about enlightenment as well as illumination. Poseidon is also about unconditional love. It's about the Christ factor, or the spiritual principles, right? The Buddhist charity, loving kindness. So if you take all of the guiding principles of religions as they were intended to be practiced, and the purpose of the practice, which is to make us kinder, more charitable, more humane people, right? and to put others before ourselves and to live, this very high principled spiritual life. This is Poseidon wrapped up all together. There are no negative sides to Poseidon. All of your trans-Neptunians are very straightforward. And like your outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, it's an outer planet, which means we don't always have the ability to access this energy in our personal life. So when these things show up in our charts, it's there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have the ability to access it because we're not developed enough yet. We have to reach for those things. It doesn't come automatically. Like, you're not automatically the best sides of a Uranus person or Plutonian person. You have to earn that merit. And also too, because these are outer planets, when these planets and trans-Neptunes are activated, this is not about you anymore. This is not about you. This is not about your vanity, your ego, your identity. This is nothing about you. You are literally a vehicle for the expression of this particular planet or planetoid or trans-Neptunian, right? As it's necessary for the evolution of mankind. You become a symbol of something, very important. It's a time marker. So I'll give you an example and then we'll get back to the horoscope. When you see the horoscopes of billionaires, for example, Bezos, the one Zuckerberg, the one in charge of Facebook, right? And, the one in charge of Virgin Airlines. When you see the charts of billionaires, oftentimes you see very specific Pluto aspects that will show up, Jupiter, Pluto. So the thing about it is, on the one hand, we could say karmically they've earned these things because of merit in past lifetimes. Of course, they're probably losing it all, in this one. They're really burning up their karma. But the more important thing is that they become markers in history, right? So their wealth and what they do with their wealth has more to do with humanity and a symbol of what they represent in terms of our evolution as far as mass consciousness. So they become vehicles for the expression of these Jupiter-Pluto things. It's not that they're so special or so smart or so genius, that of course they earn this because nobody else was that smart. It's not true at all. It's because in this particular lifetime they've earned that merit, and because now they have to become transpersonal. They've activated the outer planet Pluto. They are now transpersonal symbols of something else. They're here for the purpose of evolution in a much larger sense. They are the time markers on the line. If you wanted to talk about real genius, right? So think about this for a second. When you want to talk about real genius and people who should be wealthy or obscenely successful, living a really good life because they're so smart, like they're literally exceptions in mankind, right? These people only happen like once every billion years, right? George Washington Carver, who did all that work with peanuts, peanut oil, peanut butter, peanut this, peanut that, all these synthetic things. Like, holy crap, the stuff that we've developed from the peanut, thanks to the scientist George Washington Carver, he should be living a much bigger life than Zuckerberg or Bezos or any of these characters, right? But he didn't, right? And then also too, look at Einstein, right? You would think Einstein would have been living in the lap of luxury. Like, we only get Einsteins once every billion years or so. Well, maybe not a billion, but you know what I mean, right? He wasn't like remarkably wealthy or anything like that. And I'm certainly not like these characters, right? But he was very, very important to the evolution of mankind. So is George Washington Carver. Those gentlemen like that, and women like that. There was another one, I think it's Hedy Lamour. She was an actress, but she was a brilliant scientist. She was responsible for computers. And anyway, these people made major contributions to society and will go down in history as the pinpoints of light, the movers and shakers that pushed us forward in our evolution. Okay, but they were not materially successful. These are not people who lived in the lap of luxury because of their genius. Okay, and they were genuinely, authentically geniuses. We will always remember them and be thankful for their contributions, because without them, we wouldn't be here living like we do right now. We cannot say that about the likes of Zuckerberg and Bezos and what's his face with Virgin Airlines. Like, they're business people who got lucky. Okay, but they've contributed nothing that astronomically good or life-changing, to society on a global level or as a whole. I mean, sure, information networking and all that sort of stuff is there, but we were always and always have been, information networking people when it comes to commerce, buying and selling and trading. Like, we've always done that. All they've done is they've managed to concentrate this into single platforms that have benefited them materially more than anybody else. Okay? That doesn't make you a genius. It just makes you good at playing the game. Real genius leaves something behind that benefits and catapults humanity forward in our evolution. So, with the trans-Neptunians, just like the outer planets, we have to reach for those things. It doesn't happen automatically just because it's sitting in your chart. And when you see it there, oftentimes you become a symbol for something else. You become a vehicle for that outer planet or that trans-Neptunian to express itself. And then it's no longer about you, it's about what you represent. Right? So keep that in mind. So this full moon T-square with Uranus, which is threatening to blow literally turn the stage lights on behind the curtains and show us all that's going on back there, is also setting up a grand cross to the trans-Neptunian Poseidon. So this is important because this further emphasizes the idea of illumination, right? Bringing to light things. But Poseidon has a lot to do with charity and kindness and all the spiritual principles we're supposed to be applying towards and moving towards. So this is going to be a very important detail in the things that come out under this full moon. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up and telling you is, aside from the fact that I think it's kind of interesting, but also too, here's how you're going to get through this full moon with the least amount of bumps, bruises, scratches, and scrapes. Okay? Remember, Poseidon has everything to do with selflessness. Poseidon is like a mega Neptune or super Neptune. It's all about the Christ consciousness, or whatever your religious thing is, right? The Buddha consciousness. While this is happening, Juno and Chiron will be trining the moon. Okay, Juno and Chiron will be in Aries trining the moon as we have this grand cross set up. So Juno and Chiron in Aries absolutely asks us to examine and heal our wounds where the community is concerned. So whether it's food banks, soup kitchens, homeless shelters, social justice, whatever it is, this Chiron, Juno in Aries trining the moon in this full moon is demanding that we make brave efforts to heal our wounds, our community wounds. Poseidon is the Christ consciousness or the Buddha consciousness, or I'm limited in my knowledge of religion, so bear with me. But it is asking us to step up and level up to being better people about this. So any effort you put in, whether it's just, changing your thinking, getting your mind right, or actually doing something like donating to a food bank or contributing some time or anything, right? Even if it's giving the homeless guy down the street just, money for food and not judging and assuming he's buying drugs or alcohol. Like it's not your business. And honestly, if you've ever been cold, right, without heat, like that cold gets down into your bones. And do you know what alcohol does? By the way, in case you didn't know, alcohol will warm you from deep inside out. It's temporary, but it is a deep kind of warm from the center moving outward. And this is why a lot of homeless people and bums, right, and beggars drink. It's not because they want to be alcoholics, and it's not because they can't think of better things to spend their money on. It's because between the alcohol and the food, the alcohol, when it's really cold outside, it's actually going to warm you up a lot more efficiently than food. Temporarily, but it works, right? So food for thought. Anyway, so it's not our place to judge what they're doing with it. It's our place to try and be better people. So at the same time that this is happening, we have Mercury approaching Pluto. So information that comes out at this time and for the next couple of days after the full moon will be full of portent and power. So pay attention to the information and the communications that come out around this time. It's already starting, so we're still under that Uranus energy from the end of January, and we're not finished with it. We're still riding that wave right through this full moon. So all the stuff we're seeing in the news under this this week from the Uranus station at the end of January, all at this full moon, this is all under the Uranus auspice. It's all sorts of stuff being forced into the light so that you can't deny it anymore. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. You can't lie about it, right? Because Uranus is about inconvenient truth. So there's that. Now also too, Venus will square Mars, and Mars is still out of bounds. Mars out of bounds means that all things Martian, and this is particularly important because it is a full moon with Uranus, Mars out of balance at this time is again going to continue to overemphasize and exaggerate Martian activity. So Mars is the warrior, it's the foot soldier, it's weapons, it's violence, it's aggression, it's male sexuality at its worst expression, right? The most aggressive, like primitive, kind of like knuckle dryer energy. Mars out of bound with this particular full moon in Uranus is going to continue to emphasize this. All this Uranus crap that's been happening, like literally stuff coming out of left field, since the end of January when Uranus stationed direct, we're riding that wave still until the end of this full moon and a couple days after. Mars out of bounds is going to exaggerate, and also remember this is Scorpio. Poseidon and Scorpio. Anyway, it's going to cause some problems. So be very careful out there. Be very careful out there. Be very aware. And Venus squaring it, we may see a higher than normal incidence of sexual aggression as well. So keep an eye on your kids. Definitely keep an eye on your kids, and maybe even keep them close. And keep an eye on the people who are close to them, because this is not a rational time this week, from the end of January when Uranus stationed direct, I'll put the date down below, to this full moon and a couple days after. This is not a rational time. People will be losing what little grasp they have of reality and just letting it go, right? Because we saw it, we're going to continue seeing it. So this is what I'm giving it to you. Once we get past this full moon, whew, thank God, things should calm down until we get to the end of February. So we've got some time to, get life back together again. But between here and there, this is what we have to deal with. So, again, goodness, kindness, mercy, and charity, these are the things that will get you through this full moon more safely than anything else. And understand that there are people out there that are literally going to go way over the top in their behavior and actions because they've completely lost any sense of restraint at all. And that's part of this Uranus and full moon thing that we're dealing with this week. And keep an eye on your kids. Oh my God, keep an eye on your kids. So that's it. That's your that's your early storm system warning. I will try and get the February horoscope up shortly. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm really struggling with depression these days I really need some time off. So if I don't get the February horoscope to you, I'll be back in March. And until then, take care, and we'll see you soon.